Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Love and Leashes, a Korean romantic comedy from 2022 that was based on a webtoon. Despite his straight-laced, cold, and blunt demeanor, Jung Ji-hoo is still adored by his female co-workers. One day, his co-worker Ji-woo mistakenly opens a package of his, accidentally revealing for all of the world to see one of his sexual fetishes. Now, passing it off as a pet item, they arrange a contract between the two that begins a racy romance and the indulgence of Ji-hoo's fetish for slave master fantasies. Oh dear. Oh dear. So yes, this is a movie about sadomasochism. Yes. And I've covered some S&M doozies on this channel previously. I have a separate review of Moonlight Whispers, the Japanese film, which is really good. Psychologically intense. I very much like that one. And then my Takashi Miike playlist has a review of Ichi the Killer, the notorious practically exploitation violent film. That one's pretty entertaining in its own right. And I also reviewed R100, another Japanese film, extremely wacky, over-the-top comedy. So a pretty big diversity in films of this type, especially from Japan, which is why we love them so much. But this one is from South Korea. And where does Love and Leashes stand on this spectrum of films that we've covered here? Well, if you're a squeamish person, you have very little to worry about here. Very little to worry about. This is a surprisingly wholesome movie, but it's also a little bit less interesting than the aforementioned titles. So let's start from the beginning, right? We get a very colorful opening credits sequence with some upbeat music. The female lead's personality at the start seems a little bit cold, a little bit stiff, but she becomes likable rather quickly after mistakenly receiving the male lead's naughty package due to their names being similar to each other, and they point this out early on. Now, side note, by the way, why did this guy order a kinky sex item and have it sent to his office address? I was so confused about this. Like, why not get it sent, delivered to his house instead? Now, nowadays, a lot of people in Asia, Southeast Asia, are living with their parents in a longer period of time. This guy was pretty young, but I didn't really get that impression here, so I don't think we really ever got an explanation for that. In any case, this woman does not immediately tell his boss when she finds out about this. She recognizes this kinky item after a funny scene. She does not get him fired immediately, so she's not nearly as uptight as we were led to believe, and I like that. It adds some personality. Now, after this, she actually does some research on this topic, BDSM or S&M or whatever. So this movie is really kind of like an elementary introduction to this kind of kinky topic. Unfortunately, it never really digs into the topic to any significant degree, and it comes off as kind of like a high-level, mainstream commercial treatment. But that does not mean necessarily that it's inherently bad. Since both characters are like inexperienced in this kind of thing, their dates are quite amusing. I did like the date scenes in this. You got two people who are kind of kinky, but they're not experienced in the kinkiness. So they come off as like mini set pieces of dominatrix interaction that are really awkward. And there's no sex scenes in the entire movie, which is why I say this is pretty wholesome, all right? Now, in some sense, we've seen a lot of this stuff before in other movies, but the filmmakers, to their credit, do take their time to kind of develop this odd relationship, and it takes itself seriously enough, despite having a good amount of humor in the opening half. So, now this main actor, this main male lead, he's into like this kinky stuff, right? But he's kind of awkward with the ladies, very emotionally fragile, and sometimes a crybaby. which I didn't really like in this particular case. Now, sure, he wants to be submissive to a dominant woman, so I guess his attitude is somewhat consistent with that, but it results in some cringy scenes in this. And there are a few scenes where you're kind of cringing a little bit, like this guy's a little bit too much of a wuss, you know? But I do think that his character balances out a little bit as the film rolls along. I did find him to be a little bit too immature for the subject matter, though. Now, the actor Lee Jung-young is a member of a boy band in real life, and I kind of got that when I was watching it. He lacked a little bit of an edge that would have benefited from his role. But still, I think he did a pretty good job with what he was given. Now, the lead actress, So-hyun, is about the same for me. You know, she did a pretty good job. Did not exactly blow me away in this. So I think if the casting was like elevated to get some like top-notch actors, they could have created a little bit more intensity to it. But as is, they're just fine. Now I will say that I did moderately enjoy Love and Leashes, despite the fact that there was nothing really exceptional about it. You know, it held my attention sufficiently enough, but I do think they could have cut a good 15 minutes out of the runtime. I think it ran a little bit long. Kind of difficult to confidently recommend this to anyone, but if the subject matter seems like something you would kind of be interested in, but you don't want to get into like the nasty stuff, like some of the aforementioned films I covered, feel free to check it out. Let me know what you think. I think it's a pretty good movie. Currently streaming on Netflix. And as always, I'll see you next time.